Tim. Today, I'm talking with Scott Campbell, the original lead designer, Fallout. We're going to talk about Fallout things and what he's been up to for the last
Forever.
27
Yeah.
years.
Yeah. Long time.
So you were one of the earliest team members on Fallout. You
Yeah.
started on the team, I would think, right after the two Jasons.
That was when I officially started.
Correct.
But yeah, I mean, since even when we were just playing GURPS just for fun after hours, I was there. But even then, I have an actual trivia question for you, Tim. Do you remember the first time we met? Do you remember this? It is
Was
indelibly etched in my memory, so I just wanted
was
to.
I still a contractor,
Um, you
or was I
may
full time? Was I
you
sitting in a hallway?
you had an office, but just so you know, this was before the Fitch building.
Susan?
Yes.
I guess I fail. I met you at the Susan building?
So check this out. Check this out. So this is like 91 sometime, right? And Jeremy Barnes, you remember Jeremy Barnes?
Yep.
So I one of my like high school best buddies, right? So he met with Chris Taylor, and the two of them were playing Warhammer 40K, and so they invited me to come by this place called Interplay and play Warhammer 40K. And so I show up with some miniatures and such, and Rusty Buchert's there. First time I ever met him, and he's like in his like leathers and and all that stuff, looking like tough. And Scott Everett's is there, right? And so we all play, Warhammer 40K, and I'm just like in awe of the place at Susan, right? Because it had all those movie posters along the walls and everything else, and it was like, oh my gosh, an actual office where people make games. And so anyway, one of the posters was of the Bard's Tale. And I remember just with Rusty, I was just geeking out, saying, "Oh my God, I love Bard's Tale so much!" And he's like, "Oh, hold on, let me show you someone." And we walk down some hall, and he knocks on the door, and it was your office. And he opens up the door, and he's like, "Hey, Tim, this guy loves Bard's Tale." And I walk in, and I was like, "Ah, you were working on Bard's Tale construction set."
Oh my goodness.
And you were just like the nicest guy ever. You're like, "Hey, come in, take a look at this thing." And I'm just like, ah. But the one thing I remember is, you were showing off that, oh yeah, you can make your own stuff and, create your own like enemies and, your own, plots and party members and all that cool stuff. But in the screen of like the maze of like the dungeon and stuff, I remember even though it was only EGA at the time, it was like the colors were like kind of brown and hot pink and lime green. And I remember going, so what kind of area is this? And you're like, oh, it's a dungeon. And I'm like, and that was when you said, oh, by the way, I'm colorblind. And I was like, got it. Okay, now
All the pieces came into place. Yeah, I think
that was a
Todd
long time
Kamasta, he was the art director, and he had me make some changes. Apparently it was super ugly what I put together.
Oh, that's funny. Oh, Todd Kamasta. You know, when I first went in to interview at Interplay, I was going to be an artist, and so I interviewed with Todd Kamasta. And yeah, man, that dude, I mean, just total legend, this guy, right? But he was going off to lunch when I showed up, and he's like, all right. He sits me down in front of his Apple IIgs with like e-paint or whatever, and says, "I'll be gone for an hour or so. Make something," and he leaves. And so I'm sitting there like furiously clicking out pixels, like going, "Okay, I gotta make something. I gotta make something." And he comes back from lunch and kind of looks at what I did and was like, "Yeah, that's pretty good, but maybe something like this." And he sits down, and I swear to God, he just like grabs like the biggest brush possible and goes, click, 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 smaller brush, click, 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 smaller brush, click, click, click. And just like within 5 minutes, it's this like masterwork. And I'm just going, are you kidding me? And so anyway, I didn't get the job. Yeah, needless to say. So I left, and I was like, eh. And so I run into Jeremy, and he's like, so did you get the job? And I'm like, no. And he's like, oh, well, you should totally talk to Rusty because he's head of QA. And I was like, really? He's like, yeah. So I went up and I talked to Rusty and pretty much got the job on the spot.
And didn't Jeremy Barnes end up head of QA?
Yes, he did. And when he left Interplay, he actually formed his own QA group, his own company, and
Oh,
did that for quite a while, actually. Yeah, good old Jeremy. But the another funny story is the reason why they were hiring at Interplay for playtest was because Fergus Urquhart was leaving QA to go back to college, and they needed someone to take his spot, and that's what I did. So,
Fergus was my QA guy
uh,
on Bard's Tale, and then he went back to UCSD, and then he came back. He was an assistant producer, then an associate producer, and then a producer, and then he was running the division that
yep,
Fallout was going to go into. It was crazy. That company was so dynamic. That's a good word for it.
dude. I mean, as far as like turnover and stuff, I mean, seriously, like, I was in QA for I think like 4.5 months or something like that before Bill Dugan, Wheeze, you call it Bill Dugan. I'm sorry, Bill, if you're watching this. I never meant to say that name, but yeah. Um, Hold on, I'm getting a call. Go away, call. And Anyway, he needed he had a bunch of projects as a producer that he didn't really want to do, so he needed someone to kind of foist them off on. And so he just came into playtest and was like, "You come with me," and I became a assistant producer, like, overnight. So
Such a formal
I
process.
know. It's funny. I still tell people that say to me, that they want to get into, they want to get into the game industry. What should they do? And I was like, well, QA or intern. Really,
Yeah.
just be there and be in the development process. And I'm always like, what you have to do is you just have to, always be the person that is the solution and not the problem, right?
Well,
You're always like, hey, what can I do? How can I help? And that everyone will remember you, right? And so when they think, hey, who can we get in this role? They're like, oh, that dude that was always there and always was like, hey, how can I help? Let's get him. So,
like Tom Decker would have. He was the original producer for Fallout, but he had 22 other product SKUs, and so Alan Palos was just like,
oh,
"Oh,
God.
just write up the reports yourself. You'll be the producer now." And I was like,
Yep.
"But I'm making the engine and working on the design, and I've got all these, and I don't even have an assistant producer." He goes, "You don't need one.
Yep.
You'll be fine."
You'll cover it. It's fine.
Yeah, you started. Well, you were at the evening pizza meetings, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yep. I
Because
mean,
you weren't allowed to technically work with me. So
that was the weirdest thing too. I mean, because like I even though I was like I felt like I was a part of Fallout from like the start, it still I wasn't officially on for like quite a while.
nobody was. I was actually told I wasn't allowed to have anybody.
Yeah, weirdest thing. But yeah,
Well,
man.
I
Mm.
got in trouble after the first pizza meeting. It was after 6. I bought the pizza myself. Nobody had to be there. They could have gone home. And so Alan was like, all right. All right. I'm like, I'm going to do it again. I checked my notes. I remember us doing it twice. This is why, by the way, I'm so glad I kept so many notes. We did it at least 4 times and maybe 5. It's a little unclear. I think on the 4, I think we had 5, but I kept writing after the 4th notes because it went. The notes of the 4th meeting are really long and they get weird in the middle. So I think we restarted. Those were insane ideas we had too. Because I saw your write up. Was it at No Mutants Allowed?
No Mutants Allowed. Yep.
And you wrote that crazy dinosaur time travel monstrosity.
Dude, that's exactly what I remember. I remember. So the crazy thing is I remember you guys. I was not at that particular meeting, the one I missed, but I seem to recall you guys said that you were at the Harp of all places, and you were and just like the ideas were just flowing, and but all of this came from this one thing I actually did kind of want to touch on for the Fallout stuff was specifically for GURPS, right? Like how do you make a game that can encapsulate everything that is GURPS, right? With a generic system that can be any genre, right? So how do you make a game for that, right? And the idea of having the time travel, starting off with the Lovecraftian horror and going to the dinosaur age, and then the cyberpunk with dinosaurs.
There's detective noir in there. It was just. You came to me and said, "You're insane. Just because GURPS can have anything doesn't mean you have to make it have everything." He said, "Pull it back," and I was like, "We don't want them." And he was like, "You're not gonna get. This is not gonna get approved." So we went back to the drawing board.
Yeah.
I remember we talked aliens for a while.
It was, but okay, so I know we're jumping ahead. Though I remember seeing one of your videos about all the times that Fallout was almost canceled, right? And I remember there was this one other time that you didn't quite mention, and
I may have forgotten if I didn't write it down.
So it
doesn't work very well.
It wasn't that Fallout would have necessarily been canceled, but it was the what we were going for that eventually became Fallout could have completely changed. So let me take you back for a second, right? So at this time, what we were just talking about with how do you make a GURPS game, right? So someone, and I want to say it was Chris Taylor, but I honestly don't remember, said, "Hey, GURPS, Steve Jackson Games, is coming out with a GURPS survival book, right? And it was all about like post-apocalypse stuff and radioactive damage and blah blah blah, right? And so we were like, oh my gosh, we're gonna play a wasteland. Wouldn't that be the most awesome thing? GURPS wasteland. So but this was just before Christmas break of '94. And I remember we were all sitting in a room and we were so jazzed about this idea. We're making GURPS Wasteland. Hell yeah, right? The spiritual successor to Wasteland, but with the GURPS thing, big RPG. And so Dick Lehrberg knocks on the door and says, "Oh, hey, everyone, Merry Christmas. I'm taking off. Have a good holiday," and stuff like that. And he turns to leave and does the total, like, Columbo thing. One more thing, kind of, right? And he's like, "Oh, by the way, I just got off the phone with EA, and they still own the rights to Wasteland, so you can't do that. Have a good Christmas." And then he left. And I remember all of us were just like, "Are you kidding me?" So we had all the plans all set and everything was going great. And then it was just like, you can't do it. And so we were like, God damn it. And I remember, we were like, well, I guess we have to go back to the drawing board. And literally like an hour or two later, we all left for our Christmas break. And I remember thinking over that entire Christmas break, God damn it, what are we gonna do? I mean, sure, we had the idea of like, the aliens taking over the world and all sorts of neat ideas, but like, there's just nothing like really like screamed like this has to be made. And then at the end of the day, I remember thinking, how much I just the idea like post-apocalyptic GURPS just like called to me, right? And I was like, you know what, screw EA. And so I remember coming back with such a fire in my gut. And the first meeting we had, I basically said, you know what? Screw EA. We're doing it, but we're going to make our own thing, right? And that was, at least in my mind, right? That was kind of like even before it was called Fallout or anything else, even before, when we were still working on GURPS, right? That was like the thing. It's like, we're going to do our own post-apocalyptic thing.
Well, that was, I mean, the executable was called GURPS EXE, and I think it was the one with the grass and the trees and the little knight walking around. And poor Jason Anderson was like, "What art do you want?" And I'm like, "I don't know. Go make me a knight."
Yep.
By the way, I found out years later, and it's a video story I'm going to do later because it's got a lot of background. I found out years later, EA never ever intended to have Interplay get the license.
What?
They never.
Really?
Yep, yep. From very high up in the chain. So, and I was like, I I found out that years later, but I remember thinking, sometimes Leonard and I talk about all the bullets we dodged. Like, if we had gotten Wasteland, we never would have made this.
It's true.
And you know
It's
what?
true.
This is pretty good.
Yeah.
Um,
Yes.
I mean, here's the thing that blew me away, and I remember this is why I'm so glad I kept notes. I'm gonna embarrass you too.
Oh, all right. Bring it on.
I have notes from '95 that already have, I think, early '95, Junktown, the Hub,
Yep.
Necropolis,
Yep.
all the places people love.
Shady Sands, the Glow, you name it. Yeah.
You'd already done all that. It was already done. I mean, they were spec. I wouldn't say they were fully specced out, but there were already descriptions of like, here's what's going to be there. Here's some ideas of how quests are going to go through there. Here's some main characters that are there. The whole Killian versus Gizmo thing, and I'm just like, this is just. I was like, if you had asked me when we designed that stuff, I wouldn't have said, "Oh yeah, we had that by early '95." I would have said we were still thrashing around like a bunch of 20-somethings that didn't know what we wanted to do. But we were actually kind of on the ball back then.
Yes. Yes, indeed, we were. I mean, it's honestly, like out of all these years I've been a designer and stuff. I mean, Fallout was really my first like actual like real design job where it's just like I got like all the kid gloves came off and it was just like do whatever you want. And I only had that a couple of more times in my career. I was thankfully lucky enough to get that a few more times, but Fallout was the first. And I think my entire design philosophy was kind of created by those early days of Fallout, where in my mind, it's all about designing up front, right? Figuring out what it is that you're going to be making before you start investing tons of money into art and engineering and everything else.
When I
So
tell people, you make a setting, you make a story, you make
yeah,
some mechanics,
yep.
and
Figure out
go.
what find the fun before you do anything else, right? What is it? What is it that you're trying to tell? What emotions are you trying to elicit from the player? Why are they going to want to pick this up, right? And then once you have that core that can be interesting and entertaining, then you can build off of that, right? But
It
like
is interesting that we had very little supervision. No
we
one
had
was watching us.
none.
I wasn't reporting. I would just say we did some things this week, but nobody was like, "Have you made game pillars yet?
Yeah.
Have you decided on an art
What's
style?
the
Do
X
you have
statement of your game? Yeah.
yes? What are your main thematic expressions?" And
Uh-huh.
we're just like, "Hey, I thought this was fun. Let's do this." But
Yep.
here's where my notes get a little vague. I remember us talking about setting.
Mhm.
When did we actually come up with that story?
You mean the story of the actual like vault?
The
The vault.
vault, the water chip breaks, you go out.
I will tell you because I definitely remember this. So right after our Christmas break that I just mentioned, right? You had told me in your office that you had this dream, right? And the dream had to do with this like massive, like underground bunker, right? And I mean, I'm going to attribute almost everything to you because literally this was the thing that made me go, "Are you kidding me? This is the coolest idea ever." Um, that you had a bunch of people surviving in this shelter, right? When all of the bombs fell and all the horrible stuff, and they have no idea of what is outside. And I'm just like, oh my God, that is the coolest idea for a story ever. And so then I literally took it and ran, right? And so the water chip idea, I mean, I don't even think that's a great idea, but it was just like, how do we get them out of the vault? Why would they ever want to leave if all they're told from literally generations is, oh, there's just horrible things out there? Why would they want to go? So I'm like, well, something has to break. And if something breaks, they have to find something. They won't be able to build it. So, okay, they have to find something. So where would this thing be? Well, in another vault. So they'll basically have to go and find it from another one. Okay, cool. And that was like the emphasis, right?
I
Uh,
must have eaten so much ham over Christmas. But I think JT remembers coming up with that it was a water purification chip. I talked to him. It's weird. I mean, I wish I had written all this down. I
yeah,
basically my notes go from us discussing setting and genre to us making vaults and
I
all
know.
those areas I mentioned, Junktown and the Hub, Necropolis. I'm like, when did that happen? And I guess right after Christmas, I guess early '95.
Yep. I mean, honestly, I went a little crazy. I mean, I made a huge document of just nothing but just like all of my just total brain dump of stuff. And Brian Fryermuth helped me out considerably on a lot of this stuff. And we had a ton of ideas. And honestly, I'd say probably about a third of those ideas that we wrote up didn't even make it into the final game.
You
Um,
guys were the word now would be passionate. Back
yes.
then, you were a little crazy. I still remember your original sprite design. I know I told you about this. The one that had,
Oh yes.
you wanted us to build 2D sprites from pieces of torso, arms, legs, head. So no matter what armor you had or what weapon, it would build it up in a sort of quasi Z buffered sprite.
Yes.
You
So
remember Leonard's reaction?
oh my God, yes. And you know what? I've told this to other artists before, and they all told me, no, no, there's no way in hell, no, no, I'd never want to do anything like that because it's like the idea of like creating, artistically creating a character. That's one thing, but saying, all right, you're gonna make a head, right, and that head is gonna be interchangeable on all these different bodies, and it's like, no, no, no,
And
it's
every pose with any weapon.
yep.
And I remember even thinking, well, how are the arms going to work? Because you hold a
But
gun like this,
that
but you
thing,
hold a spear like this, and you're like, we're figuring it out. And
yep.
I remember until then, I had never seen that look on Leonard's face on anyone else but Rusty. Rusty Buchert had a stress face he would get where there'd be a vein here, and he'd start to
Oh
turn
yeah.
red, and he'd get flustered and go, ah. Leonard had a Buchert face that
Yes.
day. I believe he remembers that too as just a like I cannot do this. I
Yeah.
cannot do this. It cannot be done. You're asking the impossible. And I was like, I was trying to figure out, is it impossible or just hard? Because we're gonna do some hard stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I had made I had made like a little demo of that like running. You know, I had like a little 3D character I made in 3D Studio. Yeah, before it was called 3D Studio Max. I think it was just literally like 3D Studio version 4 or something like that. And you know, I was
3D
able.
Studio Min.
Yeah, exactly. And I was able to show like, okay, cool. Look, here's kind of like how it goes, and here's the order in which we draw things. But it was ridiculously complicated. And then because of the anti-aliasing and such at the time, right? Since we really didn't have it, and to try to compute that alpha channel was just ridiculously hard. It was so hard to do with like sprites and overlapping stuff. I mean, I mean, at the end of the day, I could totally see where he was coming from, and I think what he eventually settled on was absolutely the right thing for the game. Even though we had to cut out a lot of things I wanted to do, yeah, best decision.
And that was a good example, though, of you. You did more than just design. You put art together. You
Yeah,
made that GURPS vehicle editor just because I said I'm not going to do. I did the character editor. I'm done. I
yeah,
need to work on code for a game now. And you were like, I'm going to put all the vehicle rules in GURPS
yeah.
vehicle book.
That was a dumb idea. I mean,
Yeah, but that was
that
an
was
immense editor.
that was the most amount of time I have ever put on any sort of interface, because I thought, oh, it's just going to be easy. I put in some of these charts and a couple little rules and a couple little links. That'll be easy. No, no. The sheer amount of interface of like generating all the lists, and being able to add the things, all the buttons, and all the things, and making sure that all the database works, and it was so much work. But I got really, really familiar with your windowing system. What is it? It was
Ganal.
GNOW. That's right, because GNOW's Windows.
Ganal was in Fallout. Ganal was in Starfleet Academy and
Yeah.
Max and Sim Earth and Sim City 2000 and the
Oh,
Jeremy Barnes, when he found out that all of the files for the GURPS character editor were external, that we just read them out of text files. So like I had done the basic set, and there were spells and skills and um, advantages and disadvantages. He's like, wait, I can just do whatever I want. And he and like some people in QA took those books Steve Jackson gave us, and they did like magic and horror and
yeah.
cliffhanger, just all of them. And I still have a lot of these files of just GURPS, some genre or some world book. They went insane.
Yes, they did in fact go insane.
But
Mm.
that was a weird time, and I try to explain to people now. We were this weird, passionate, boundaryless. I used to tell people I'd go to Interplay at 2 a.m. Like I'd be driving back from somewhere, like LA or something, and I go, I'll swing by Interplay because there's only a few blocks from where I lived. I'd see a light on. I'd see somebody there. There was somebody who was in their office. Sometimes I went in and I'm like, I just want to know who's here. It was weird, and it was often one of you guys,
Yeah.
you or Jeremy or Chris Taylor or Scotty or just someone just doing something. Sometimes you guys were just in the conference room because your game went on too long of whatever you were playing that night,
Yep.
and no one wanted to forfeit. You all wanted to be the winner. So it was like 2 a.m. You're like, we'll be over in another 2 rounds, 3 rounds, I'm sure. And I'm like, yeah, you guys, I'll see you here in the morning.
Good times. Good times.
It was
A family is what it was, right? And
yeah.
it was like the best kind of family, because we were all in love with what we were doing, right? We were all passionate about not just the work, but like what it meant and what it represented.
We were excited about it.
Yeah, and like, I mean, speaking at least for myself, it's like I had spent.
about those things and then said, okay, let's do it.
Well,
I haven't encountered that a lot.
I mean, it's funny because I don't know how much of that is just, ignorance on our behalf of how hard everything really is, or, that we were just so passionate about it that we decided, we'll figure out a way to make it work, right?
Yeah.
Uh, but at the end of the day, though, I mean, all of us, we just wanted to make something that was awesome, and almost more importantly, something that we want to play, right? And I think that was
Yeah.
our goal.
That was our rule. We liked making each other laugh. We liked each other going, "Oh, that's going to be my new favorite feature." We
Yep.
all wanted to be the person that week because I found notes and I had to correct Leonard. Leonard likes to say that Jason Anderson and we talked about
sure you want to do that? my character got grabbed and was being dragged away into the abyss. And since I was a and then intentionally, and if you critically fail, you could cause a spectacular result. And it pretty much all I did was come to the right time. Enough to make the rest of the party see that I was really playing and Exactly, right? And so, but he comes with his like entire movie of these frogs doing these crazy animated things. And I was like, frogs for and stuff, I suppose, for Shrek back when it was Chris Farley doing Shrek.
Can I just interject and say Fargo brought Spielberg by my office because he wanted to see a programmer.
Legendary dude. Anyway, so he was a very, very good friend of mine, and just afterwards, he was talking about like network security and stuff, and he did something stupid, but he was trying to make a point where he got Brian Fargo's password to his email and sent him a message from himself or something like that to basically say, "Hey, we really need to work on security here at Interplay." And for that, he was fired and like just out the door, thrown out. And I'm like, dude, he was one of the founders of this company. He's done so much stuff. He was one of the guys that literally told me to, maybe go get a job at Interplay, and stuff like that. I mean, it's like, me and Bill, we were tight, man. And so all of that was just like dragging me down. And then so here comes, the game that would be Fallout. I do all this design for it. The team's coming together. I'm still not entirely sure whether or not we'd actually be able to make anything. When, out of the blue, Bill Heineman calls me up and says, "Hey, Scott, how would you like a job?" And I was like, "Really?" And he's like, "Yeah." So it turns out I started up this company with a friend, and we have maybe a couple other people from Interplay, and we're making our own game studio called Logicware, and we need someone that is basically a game director that can create and oversee any of the games that we make. And we have this one particular game that we have potentially a buyer for. And I was just like, this is like the perfect opportunity, right? And so um thinking, Interplay, it's like, they wonderful place, but I did feel kind of slighted a little bit. And I thought what they did with Bill was bad. And and I'm like, God, I'd love to work with this dude again. And the opportunity of having my own like say and be like creative director and stuff, hooray. And so yeah, I said, all right, I'll do everything I can possibly do with Fallout, as much story and as much brain dump as I possibly can, get it all done on paper, turn it over, and then say, peace out.
I remember us talking on the balcony that you were going to leave, and I just remember
Yeah.
being like, because from my point of view, it was like we were all super excited. We were doing all this stuff. It was all starting to come together. We were actually seeing levels being made. We didn't have a scripting language yet, but some primitive AI was in and stuff. And then you're like, I have to go. And I
Yeah.
still remember afterwards, several people and I, we were sitting around and we are like, we're not going to be able to recover from this. I mean, you were so passionate and you did so much. I mean, you worked so much and we already had so much stuff done. And the thing that kind of saved us, because we were super depressed, is Stone Keep Ship.
Go Stone King.
95.
Yep.
And Chris Taylor, who had already worked with us, he had come unpaid and worked some nights. He was at the meetings, the pizza meetings. He was released because there was no Stone Keep. I think they start going to talk about a Stone Keep too, and it never happened. Um, so yeah, we got him, and it was like, hey, we can do this. But I just remember, and Leonard said years later when Leonard and I were counting, what are all the times we thought we were screwed? And we talked about the almost cancellations. That's the first time I told him, yeah, you don't know this, but I almost quit because I couldn't afford a mortgage. And the mortgage guy was literally laughing at me about what I was paid. And he was like, look, dude, I worked with computer programmers in a bunch of different companies. You were the absolute lowest paid one I've ever seen by like orders of magnitude. And he was just like, you cannot get a loan. There's no strings I can pull. There's nothing I can lie to any bank at any interest rate. This is not going to happen. And I remember thinking, wait a minute, I'm getting screwed here. But I mean, we were talking about that, and he didn't know about that one, and he said, yeah, but man, with Scott Campbell,
Mm.
because we were like, who's gonna think of all the ideas of the who's like there were some things about the Junktown and the hub that were just so fallouty. They were like, you go to Junktown, you're like, I get it. People were scared. There were mutant animals eating them. They went into a junkyard and there were stacks of cars, and that thing still worked, so they moved some cars in, and suddenly things aren't eating them every day. Simple. But
Yep.
it was such a cool thing. And also, I remember Leonard goes, oh, we can make that really fast, because it was back then the stuff it was hard to do organic, and it was hard to do
Anything with fur, that's for sure.
fur, dirt. I remember Jason complaining how hard dirt was to do. I'm like, well, you better get used to it. This game's got a lot of dirt.
Yeah, I
But
was gonna
the
say.
cars weren't that hard. So putting the car models and stacking them up and not having to worry about doing the interiors, they like that. So I just remember that was a rough day. So,
Well, I mean, so I have talked to many people since, and they're like, "Oh, so what'd you do on Fallout?" And I told them a little bit, and they're like, "Oh, so when it shipped," and I'm like, "Well." I don't have a lot of insight into all the things that went into that because I had left, and they're like, "Oh, really?" I'm like, "Yeah." Um, Honestly, looking back, at everything, I tell people, um, finish what you start, right? It's like I think leaving Fallout, not just when I did, but just leaving a project in the middle of development, just don't do it, right? It's like I've only done it one time in my entire professional career. That was Fallout, and the only project I regret is Fallout. Because that was that out of all the things I've worked on, and I've worked on some things I'm really super proud of, but Fallout is the one that's like, God damn it, I wish I would have seen that all the way through.
Here's what I should tell you though, because I left Fallout 2. Um, I always tell people not to regret anything because I always go like, okay, if I hadn't left Fallout 2, I never would have made my own company. I never would
Yeah.
have made Arcanum and some of those other projects. So I don't want to ever say I regret anything, but Fallout is one of two projects I ever walked away from in my career, and neither felt good. Didn't feel good. However, in hindsight, it was the right thing to do.
Mm.
No matter how people felt, no matter what people said. And so I always think that even though I think it would have been awesome, and I hope I haven't stressed that too much for you to have stayed, I was never really angry because I heard you became a game director, and I'm like, well, that's awesome. I mean, that's how could you ever go, hey, screw you. You should have stayed and been a designer on this, been the lead designer on it. I mean, that was a huge step up of what you did. And I'm happy you did it, and tons of things worked out, and you had a great career. And I wanted to balance that with we were all sad you left. We really were sad that you weren't there. And that's why years later, I mean, you left in late 95. So late 97, we're doing the final parts of the game, and the manual has to be done. And I don't remember, I want to say it was Leonard, but somebody went, hey, a lot of people worked on this game, but remember the original genesis of this game? I want those names all on a credit list. And I'm really glad your name is there, and I'm really glad we did this because I don't think people know enough about what you did. A lot of Fallout bits are only there because of Scott Campbell.
Well, I mean, like, so, I saw your video on credits, and I think that is so perfectly put, right? It's like even though you might have the inception of like an idea or something like that, that kind of means nothing, especially like when you look at like a final product, because it's a collaborative effort, right? It's like everyone crafts it and pushes it and molds it into the final product, right? I mean, as you said in that video, that even though it sounds as though you might be speaking very politically correct when you're like, well, we did this, and but that's the truth, man. I mean, it's like I can't take credit for Fallout when in essence are all game designers, are all riffed off of became something greater than its inception. So I helped out with
There's two periods in a game that require tons of heavy lifting and passion and commitment. The beginning, where there's nothing and everything. I mean, you're like, what's the story? What's the setting? What's the art style going to be? We have no tools. We can't make anything. We don't even know the rough outline of what we want to make. And then the ending, where you actually get this thing across the finish line, against all odds and bugs and people yelling at you and marketing people going, I promised it on the shelves. Well, I shouldn't have done that, but okay. Your problem has now become my problem. Those are the two worst parts. And so I felt like, I mean, you were there with us at the very beginning, and you got us pushed past some of those hard conceptual points. And I just want people, if there's one thing they walk away from this, wow, we've been talking for over an hour. If they walk away with one thing, it's, wow, Scott Campbell had a lot to do with Fallout.
Oh, well,
That's what I want them walking away with, because you did.
Well,
I think
I
I found a
appreciate
picture
that.
of you.
You know,
Might have been a book.
I have honestly, I've worked on a lot of games. You know, I've touched a great many titles in the 30 some odd years that I've been around, and helped some from the inception point, helped some of them just like with like some systems, and others I've done most of the design heavy lifting. And some big projects, some small projects, lots of console games. Yeah, I mean, I literally regret nothing. I think that the time I spent at Logicware helped me become a much better designer. And all this time, when founding, White Moon Dreams, my God, 16 years ago.
That's
Um,
amazing.
I know, and we're like I said, we're still an independent studio. So it's just we're the ones that own the place, and we're still doing good. We're helping a lot of other companies out right now, not just ship their games, but be AAA titles, and run at like high frame rate, and helping some companies out with some design. Also helping a couple of skunkwork things that I can't really even talk about. Yeah, yeah,
Oh, it's just between us.
no, it's just exactly. Well, let me tell you, no, NDAs are one of those strong binding things that everyone should be afraid of. But yeah, man, it's Fallout is again one of those things that like I tell people like oh, I worked on this game, I worked on that game. It's like some of the games that we had worked on at White Moon, it's like, oh, Starblood Arena, and a lot of times it's like, what's that? It's like, well, it was a PlayStation VR launch title, and they're like, oh yeah, okay. Or I'm like, oh yeah, War Machine Tactics, the War Machine tabletop game, we did that, and like, oh, okay. It's like, all right, well, how about Myth 3: The Wolf Age? I really did a whole lot of work on that, and they're like, oh, Myth, yeah, that was that Bungie game. Yeah, well, yeah, okay, I played 1 and 2. Where like, oh yeah, I actually worked a little bit on like God of War, a little bit on like Shadow of the Colossus, a little bit on like, Killzone, a little bit on like a whole bunch of other these tiny games when I was at Sony. I made this game called, God, I hate this name, but Neopets, The Darkest Fairy, which was Sony's attempt to make a Legend of Zelda game in the Neopets universe. I did that entire design, and yeah, me and George Weissing. My God, we spent so much time on that. And yeah, looking back on like all the little things, Fallout is still the one that like I mentioned that, and everyone's like, oh, "You did that?" And I'm like, "Yeah, yeah, 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 yeah."
And
But
I think we should thank Bethesda for resurrecting that license and getting
no
it
joke.
mainstream. But
Yep,
yes, I know what you mean, because you sometimes want to go, I did other things too. But
exactly.
everyone's like, I would tell us Fallout stories.
Yep, yep, yep.
But I just and too, I just want to make sure you understand that like I'm thanking you not from just me and from the Fallout team, but for the fans. I mean,
Aw,
thank you very much. I mean, Fallout was special, and I don't mean
the
the
system.
attributes. I
Yep.
mean, it was a special time. It was a special game, and we all know how much we owe you. But now I hope other people know how much they should consider you when they look at Fallout and go, "I like this game."
Well, I mean, again, totally appreciate all of the words, but I'm also the guy that came up with the name Rad Scorpion. Yeah.
Hey, it
I
was
mean,
better than the. I was the one who wanted to name the game Rad Storm out of that because of that dumb movie. Um, that movie had a good story.